let me tell you a little bit about our featured speaker today. Speaking of sacrifices made on the behalf of our country, my goodness, today's story is absolutely the epitome of that. We're here today with Francis Gary Powers Jr., whose father, we all know this, well, we don't know, but we've heard of before, and we're here to learn more about. Now, Gary's here with us today. He was born in 1965. He holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy and a master's degree in public administration and U.S. history. He's the founder and chairman emeritus of the Cold War Museum located in Vint Hill, Virginia. He is the chairman of the Presidential Advisory Committee for the Cold War Themed Study, which assists the National Park Service to identify historic Cold War sites for preservation. Gary is the past president and CEO of the Vienna Tysons Corner Regional Chamber of Commerce, 2000 to 2005, and in 2015 he consulted for Steven Spielberg's thriller, Bridge of Spies, which, I'm going to pause here momentarily to say, we are going to show at this museum. We've been trying to do it for a while now. COVID has prevented that, but that is going to happen. As long as you're committed to it, we're committed to it, we're going to make that happen. So he was a consultant for Steven Spielberg on that movie, Bridge of Spies, about the 1962 spy exchange between the KGB spy Rudolf Abel and CIA U-2 pilot Francis Gary Powers Sr. He is the author of Letters from the Soviet Prison and Spy Pilot. Gary lectures internationally, appears regularly on C-SPAN, History and Discovery channels, and is married with one son, and is here today as our featured speaker. Gary, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Palm Springs Air Museum.
When I was growing up in Southern California, I was aware that my father had been shot down over the Soviet Union, imprisoned by the KGB, and ultimately exchanged for a Soviet spy. But as a kid, growing up in this family, this was normal. I was aware of it. I thought everybody's dad had been through something like this. That perception changed on August 1st of 77. My dad's working for NBC Television out of Los Angeles, flying their helicopter, reporting on news, weather, and traffic. On August 1st of 77, the helicopter runs out of gas and crashes. He and the cameraman are killed in the accident. So at the time, being 12 years old, I walk into a house full of people who inform my mom and I of the bad news. Our lives are turned upside down. As a result of my research, specifically into the U-2 incident, I uncovered numerous conspiracy theories, rumors, speculation, some outright lies about what took place on May 1st of 60. I've read that it was sabotage, and a Norwegian spy had planted a bomb in the tail section of the airplane. I've read that it was our own government, CIA, who intentionally sabotaged the mission to perpetuate the Cold War by ruining the summit conference that was planned for May 16th of that year. I've read that it was pilot error, that Dad allowed the plane to have a flame out that forced it to a lower altitude where it was then hit by a MiG or a missile. And my favorite theory comes from a television show called Dark Skies for NBC Television. This is probably 25 or 30 years ago. They attribute the U-2 incident to an encounter with a UFO. So we have all these alleged theories. Some that are quite believable, flame out theory. Others that are a little far-fetched, being encountered with a UFO. So 500 feet. From what I have, he's 4.5 hours into his mission. He's over the city of Sverdlovsk. There, a bright orange flash lights up the exterior of the canopy. A shockwave hits the plane, pushes the plane forward, throws my dad back in his seat. My dad realizes that something's gone wrong. The controls no longer respond. You can't fly a plane without its tail section. The near miss of a Soviet SA-2 missile, a new and improved missile that had been developed over the last 4 years, has exploded near enough to the tail section to cause structural failure. As a result, the nose pitches forward, the wings snap off, Dad goes into an inverted spin. On the way down, he notices a dark car following his descent. On May 5th, Khrushchev, premier of the Soviet Union, holds a press conference. "Ah, comrades, we've shot down an American spy plane. So my dad returns home to a lot of controversy. He is debriefed by the CIA for 3 weeks at a safe house in Maryland. After the first week of debriefings, they realize that he didn't give away any information to the Soviets, that he didn't compromise or jeopardize any of their programs that he had knowledge of. So this whole controversy that surrounded my father and his untimely death in 1977 is what put me on this track to try to find out the truth of what took place. And that's why I ended up writing Spy Pilot, to help set the record straight. Along my journey to find out about my father, to find out the truth of what took place, I discovered that there were hundreds of thousands of men and women who fought, sacrificed, and died during this conflict that had not been given any recognition for their service during the Cold War. I also found out by giving lectures to high school students between 92 and 96 that they really didn't know anything about the Cold War that had just ended 5 years earlier. I would go into a classroom in Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. I would give a talk on the U2 incident. I get blank stares from the kids. They thought I was there to talk about the U2 rock band. So that was the first clue. Something had to be done to preserve Cold War history, honor Cold War veterans, educate kids on this time period. In 1996, I ended up founding the Cold War Museum, honor Cold War veterans, preserve Cold War history, educate kids. What I thought would take 3 years, fundraise $3 million, shouldn't be too hard, took 15 years to get brick and mortar. And in that time period, we started to collect Cold War artifacts. Very easy to find in the mid-90s, very difficult to find today. So we were ahead of the curve when we started our outreach and our collection. As a result of our efforts, we have items from the USS Liberty incident, the USS Pueblo incident, overhead reconnaissance platforms, U-2, SR-71, KH and/or Corona spy satellites. We have the largest collection of civil defense items in America, having saved and salvaged the Civil Defense Headquarters for Washington, D.C. We've been able to get uniforms, flags, banners, regalia, some weapons from East Germany, West Germany, the Soviet Union, America, and other countries that were involved in the Cold War. The Cold War was a world war. It affected every country to one extent or another. Some countries much more so, like Germany, that had the Berlin Wall going down the middle of the city. And it had a lasting impact on American life and world life. So I always think that it's very important to understand history, to learn from our past so that we can make our future a better place to live. Sometimes I'm thinking that government officials don't get that memo. So sometimes I see right now that history is repeating itself. The tensions, the things that are going on in the world. And you can look back to the Cold War and see similarities. And that's why I think it's so important to understand this history, because it will help you go forward into the future. So that's just a little bit about the Cold War Museum, the U2 incident. More information online for the museum is that line is coldwar.org. If you'd like to reach me, I can be reached through my website at garypowers.com. So thank you very much for coming out today. I'll be glad to open this up for Q&A. And Greg, how do we want to do that?
Oh, do we have any questions? Well, first of all, how about a thank you, folks? Absolutely.